Good morning, Decatur County. I'm Nick Messer. Welcome to Overtime. Joined in studio here by North Decatur boys basketball head coach P.J. Metz. Good morning, Coach.
Hey, good morning, Nick. How are we today?
Not too bad. Before we get started here, I do want to talk about some cancellations. Greensburg Wrestling has been canceled. Greensburg girls basketball has been canceled. And North Decatur junior high basketball at Batesville has been canceled this morning. I got my phone on, and I'm waiting on if there's any cancellations from Rodney Martin at South Decatur or Scott Johnson at North Decatur, or any Greensburg cancellations during the show from Greensburg. I'll get those to you guys, the listeners out there. As soon as I get them, you'll know. Not sure if it's preemptive, Coach, or what, but got some early cancellations, so I guess we'll see what's going to happen later today. But nonetheless, we have, again, Coach P.J. Metz in the studio here from North Decatur boys basketball. Coach, big win?
It was. Finally, not to get the monkey off the back, so to speak, but when you sit 0-3 and you see all this weather coming in, knowing you've got a team that's hungry to get one, it was nice to go over to Edinburgh last night, and walking into that gym has some nostalgia from the sectional championship we won there last year, so it felt very familiar, and I think the boys kind of felt comfort, I guess, if that makes any sense, going in there and walked away with one.
Yeah, and Edinburgh is, I don't know if it's tough to play there, but it's unique because it's one of the bowls, the bowl arena or whatever style you want to, the pit or whatever. So it's kind of a tough place to play anyway.
It is, and we haven't shot the ball extremely well to start this year, especially our first two games. But last year's sectional final and even last night we came out and we normally shoot the ball well in that gym. And I can go back to when I had played. I always felt like I shot the ball well there for whatever reason. It's some gyms you call them shooters gyms or so to speak, but. Yeah, it was a good game for us last night. Owen Rennekamp continues to build on good career for him. He kind of came out of the gate slow, but he ended up with 26 last night. And then, Charlie Palmer got his first start, ended up with 16. And he's just a force. He's a tough kid to match up with, tough kid to guard. And really, he's only a sophomore, and I don't want to say he's got skill, but he's still drinking out of a fire hose, so to speak, catching up with the speed of the varsity game. And he played really, really well.
Yeah, and as a opposing coach, I think you nailed it there. Like if you're game planning for Charlie, it's kind of hard because he's a bigger kid. He's a lot faster than he probably gets credit for. He can rebound. He's a force inside, but he can step out and hit that little mid-range, that 15-footer.
He does, and he shoots the ball well all the time in practice. When we do shooting drills or different things that our big men aren't working on the side with one of our assistant coaches doing some post-work stuff, he's got the ability to shoot the ball, and his shot looks good. He's got decent stroke, good formation. But it's kind of one of those things, I'm not sitting here and calling him 7'4" Zach Edey, but with his strength and his size down low, it's like, why ever put him out on the perimeter? We could run some 5-out stuff or maybe get him a look from out there, but we joke all the time in practice. I feel sorry for Mason Coons because Mason Coons is the one that's always got to battle with him. And I'll tell you what, if I was a kid walking in and knowing that was my matchup every night, just his size alone and his strength alone, he is a tough guard if you are a post player, because if he's trying to work to seal you, like you said, he's quick enough to keep you behind him, and he's strong enough to definitely keep you behind him. He's kind of like you said, a force to kind of reckon with.
Yeah, he kind of has, go back to the 90s, Julius Peppers when he played for North Carolina. Known for football, he'd come out on that basketball court, and it just, the strength alone, how do you plan for that? But I am going to interrupt you, Coach, here just a minute. This just in from South Decatur Athletic Director Rodney Martin. Both boys and girls games have been canceled today. So just to repeat that, South Decatur, both boys and girls games have been canceled for today. So, all right, getting back to the shooting, Odell. Looks like Odell's kind of getting warmed up a little bit in the last couple games.
Logan, I call him, a flamethrower, because when he sees the first one go in, like, you don't want to take him off the floor because you feel like the next 5 or 6 are going to go in. And last night he came out of the gate and he banged in his first 3 right from the corner, and I thought, here we go. But last night's game for me, especially from a shooter's perspective, was tough to ever really get into a rhythm. And what I mean by that, we had a lot of success going high-low against their zone with the way that we kind of game planned against it. And it was tough if you're a shooter to really get into a rhythm, because every time we'd have an offensive possession, Edinburgh's coming down and taking 40, 45 seconds off the clock. And it felt like a tooth pull, so to speak. Defensively, I thought we were really good in a lot of different areas. But to find a rhythm with a young team and keep that consistent rhythm, it's not like Edinburgh's coming down and running and gunning when they're sitting back and falling back in that 2-3 zone. So, I don't know. I haven't got the final statistics back from Huddle Assist yet, so I don't know how many he shot from the field, but his shot is coming around. If you watch our South Ripley game, I believe he hit 6 that night. So he doesn't need a lot of space to get it off, doesn't need a little time to get it off, but he's definitely rounding into form with where we want him to be.
Who are you seeing this year that is maybe you anticipated it, maybe you're coaching and driving for it, but who are you really seeing stepping up, being that leader this year?
Owen, I think it's always an easy it's always an easy tell when I'm in the locker room, when I'm around a lot of these guys. Is Rennekamp is the guy that leads by example. He's got great rapport with everybody, and if I had to give him a downfall, it's he's not more vocal. He's a quiet kid, and I've had 2 really good point guards play for me in my 6 years so far, and they're both 2 of the quietest kids I've ever coached. So as a coach, from your point guard perspective, you want them to be loud. You want them to always be talking. And he says things he needs to say, but sometimes you maybe would want more from him. But I feel like all those guys, if there's ever if I ever ask a question and I'm out loud to the team, like, what are you guys seeing? All the other 8 guys' eyes turn to Owen and kind of wait on him to speak before they all kind of chime in. But, Owen obviously has earned it with his extra time and his hard work that he puts in during the year, but I'd probably be faulting if I didn't say that Logan's kind of earned that as well now too. Being a senior, starting varsity for 3 years now, big part of our sectional win last year. He's definitely become more vocal, because Logan was also kind of just a fly by the seat of your pants kid. I knew that I was going to get the effort from him, and I knew that he was going to put in the work, and a lot of eyes are starting to turn to him as well too. So it's good to see. And one of the good things about having dual sport athletes to a successful football program is even those kids that, like Charlie, we mentioned him, Matthew Fields, who's QB for football, and even Henry Kinker, so to speak, like those guys bring good leadership qualities over to the basketball side of things. So I've got a good collection of guys that are willing and not afraid in the moment to step up and say things from a leadership perspective that they know need to be said.
Yeah, and one that I noticed the other night that kind of stepped into it was Wyatt.
Yeah.
Wyatt Reisman. It was good to see him. He played a lot of JV last year, worked some varsity, but it was good to see him. It looks like he stepped into that role.
Yeah, he has. Wyatt had a great year last year JV-wise. He had a great summer. And I know, just watching his body language right now, he is not shooting the ball nearly up to par of what he expects from himself. I'd almost at this point, not that you want to put high expectations on a sophomore, but I had high expectations for him coming into this year, and I still believe he's going to meet those expectations. But Friday and Saturday night games with crowds and intros and pregame stuff is a lot different than rolling the ball out and playing in the summertime. So we're trying to be patient with him. We are being patient with him. I'm just trying to get him accustomed and more comfortable, because I do believe once that confidence gets back to where we know it to be, that he's going to perform for us. And he's one of those guys that is a 3-level scorer, so to speak, from the standpoint of he's got crafty little footwork, if not that we'd ever put him back to the basket, but can score around the rim. He's got good mid-range, and his 3-point set shot, when his confidence is up, it looks really, really good.
And, I know fans and parents and people, they always, and I talk about this all the time, they see score and that's all they see. Mm-hmm. They don't see the behind the scenes, what's going on, the day-to-day process, the growth. They just look at box scores and, we lost. They're not seeing things like you just mentioned. What are some other things that are going on behind the scenes that people may not be seeing that, you as the coach, you're seeing that growth right now?
Yeah. One kid I failed to mention that if you would watch him just in the course of a game, and you talk about box score and scoring, you wouldn't think it will produce a lot for me. And you may question, why is he playing here? Why is he in this role here, doing those sorts of things? Is Garrett Schwerin. Garrett Schwerin, I talked about the leadership side a little bit ago, but you want to talk about, we joke all the time, we call him the team dad, but keeping everybody in line. He does. Like, when it comes to the younger guys and making sure they meet expectations and different things, like Garrett does a lot of good things on and off the floor. On the floor, is it great to have 5 guys on the floor that are threats at all times? Absolutely. But you also have to have guys that fill roles for the things that don't show up in box scores. Being in the right places, rebounding the ball, being gritty, hard-nosed. And Garrett has been playing all the way up since they started in Dirt Road. And he may not ever come out and you can rely on him to get you 10 points, but I guarantee you I can rely and trust him to do the little things that we need throughout the course of a season and a game to help us as a team be more successful. But, talking about things behind the scenes maybe that people don't recognize is every practice we've gotten better. You can't see that sometimes from game to game. You may look at our first 2 games and be like, man, what are these guys doing? But you watch South Ripley defensively. You watch last night with Edinburgh defensively. These sophomores are catching up to the speed of things. And our 2 guys with Logan and Owen, I'll just use those 2. They're adjusting to the pressure of what I'll call being the man. When you step into a game, and unless you've ever been there, and there's probably not too many people that have, and your coach is looking at you saying, hey, if you don't get me 15 to 20 tonight, we don't win. That's a different pressure. You can do it through junior high, but when it comes to varsity basketball, like, unless you've been there, you don't understand what that means. And when you're a role guy and you can just kind of be the 5th or 6th option and defenses aren't keen on you, I don't want to say it's still easy to do, but it's easier. But now when most teams' game plans are coming in and they're saying, hey, keep running camp out of the paint, or hey, don't let Odell shoot, and game plans are, revolving around that, these guys are finding different ways to still be effective. And those are things that we work on daily. Those are things that I think we've prepared them for, and we're starting to see it come to fruition.
And I think that is great points. And you talked about pressure, It's a huge amount of pressure on everybody.
Yeah.
And when people just look at a box score, first of all, it's early in the season.
Sure.
So, the chatter really shouldn't be going on. Your game 3, 4.
Game 4
last night, into the season. So, shouldn't be any chatter because that's just going to add pressure to these kids that are trying to figure it out. And as you said, they're trying to drink from a water hose or a fire hose and adjust and you're leaning on that leadership, but that is pressure for them to rise up, and especially like you said, most people don't realize the challenge of playing. For example, you play at South, right, where that atmosphere is just always electric because it's the rival, and then you turn around the next night and you have to play a pretty talented South Ripley team
at Tyson.
At their historic gym at Tyson, which that was an advertisement on their PR side and everything, but that is tough for players like Charlie or Wyatt, who are growing into their roles. And I think people don't see that. And that's why I always like to mention the growth part of it.
Yeah, that's why we're here. And not that obviously it's not going to be the case with what we were able to do last night, but I don't care about our best basketball being played right now. If that was what I was worried about, then we'd have completely different game plans and our practices would be geared around different sorts of sets and those, so on and so forth. Do we want to win right now? Absolutely, but we want to play our best basketball February heading into March. And last year's team was a perfect example of that. We were 500, but kind of rolling, and we got rolling that week of sectional really with a full head of steam and kind of clicking on all cylinders and had some good game plans, and the kids executed and ended up walking out of Edinburgh with sectional champions. So the growth aspect is key and it's huge. And if I had a bunch of seniors right now that were 3-year varsity guys and we're just coming out of the gate 0-3 and looking like a dysfunctional basketball team, then maybe I'd have a little bit different tune. But I've got 2 guys returning that obviously were key components to last year, and everybody else is brand new to varsity basketball, so it's all about growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I hope listeners and those watching on YouTube, keep that in mind with young teams or developing teams. There's going to be growth and there's going to be ups and downs. And you have to understand that when you're essentially building a program. But let's switch gears real quick. As of right now, your game's still on tonight, 7:30, Oldenburg.
Yeah, I'm reading.
I know.
I'm reading some AD messages come across, and
but as of right now, so let's just shift gears, talk about that.
Yeah.
Game planning and what you're doing to prepare for that one.
Yeah, I mean, this week, double weekends are a bear to begin with because as a coach, you're always caught between how much time do I spend on my Friday night opponent versus do I spend a lot of time game planning for what we're going to see Saturday. And with this week, with it being Edinburgh on our first conference game, I told the kids, like, we'll worry about Edinburgh whenever the horn goes off Friday night, which is last night, and then we'll start thinking about Oldenburg. But, just looking at both games this week, right now our biggest opponent is probably North Decatur. And I, not to sit there to say that, we don't have to game plan for either team this weekend, but I do feel like with things trending the way they are in the directions they're going, improvement that we've seen in these few 3 or 4 short weeks, that right now if we go out and execute our game plan with the guys that we have at the helm and do what we do and do it well, not that you can say you're going to guarantee and walk out a victory. It's not what I'm trying to say at all, but we'll go through some typical scout stuff this morning. And knowing that they're primarily a man-to-man team, they like to run and gun a little bit. That kind of fits more into our wheelhouse. If we can go out and execute the things that we've been working on and building on with day one, that's going to take care of a lot of the game planning aspect per se.
Yeah, and typically you're a man-to-man.
Yeah, my kids will tell you that there's a lot of zone stuff that we do that we do execute it well at times, but I don't teach zone great, and I think it's a lot of it because I don't buy into a lot of zone stuff. I am a primarily man-to-man guy, but with that being said, if you've watched our 2 games now, we've kind of switched up our defensive execution, so to speak, and we are switching and giving teams a lot of different looks on dead defensive ball possession. So teams in the past, I haven't been able to really do that with, but this group, they're all pretty interchangeable, long, they've got length, decent athletes, and good two-way guys on both sides of the ball that we're kind of mixing and matching some zone, more so than what I've done in the past with what we do.
And you almost have to. Like, the game has evolved so much where, 20, 30 years ago it was blocker, mover, motion offense, that style, pass the ball 20 times, and, and now it's what's called 5 out to you listeners, and it's more of a fast-paced game, so while zone has its purpose, clearly has its purpose, but to adjust to the new style of offense, you almost have to stay in man, or you can't get out and run fast enough.
Yeah, and one of our purposes with mixing stuff up, I'll give Coach Brad Cutter at Lawrenceburg credit for this. I've coached against him now for 5 years, and their defensive game plan, typically you'll see that they'll switch between 3 or 4 different defenses throughout the course of a quarter. Let alone a game, and it always disrupts our flow and our tempo. Maybe you've had a couple offensive possessions look really good against a man-to-man style, and here he comes out with a 1-3-1, or here he comes out with a 3-2, and we really implemented against South Ripley. We kind of started this, and I felt like even though the score wasn't very indicative of how close that game was, but I felt like we controlled the tempo of the entire game due to our switching up on dead defensive ball possessions. They never really, and I know they didn't probably shoot the ball well like they're accustomed to, but I never felt like offensively they got into a flow with us just because of, throwing 1-3-1s, throwing our little special packed in 1-3-1 version, and then we would switch to some 20, and they started overloading and getting some good looks from corners, and that was kind of backbreakers in the second half. But if you'd go back and watch that game, with how we played our first 2 games and Logan getting hot, I felt like we controlled the tempo defensively with what we were able to do there. So kind of a game plan X's and O's type thing, but I think that if you come out and you can throw wrenches and make teams have to spend extra time preparing for different defenses, I think it can be to your advantage.
Right, and not keeping them comfortable you don't want them to get in that rhythm either. So on those dead balls, just switching it up and forcing them to change their offense, you get them out of rhythm and they become uncomfortable. And even the best teams, when they're uncomfortable, struggle to respond.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, we're high school kids. These guys are teenagers, and a lot of these kids are dual sport guys, three sport guys. Some of them. So from the standpoint of, yeah, we've got a lot of basketball players, but when things are going in a flow and things are going smooth and up to expectation, things are a lot easier to execute. But if you can throw a wrench in there with a little adversity and force guys to think and change maybe your offensive formation to try to mask and whatever you feel like is the best formation to go against a certain type of zone. It definitely can give you the upper hand, slowing down the game, getting guys in all right spots from a defensive perspective, and just making things tough from the offensive perspective.
How do you handle locker rooms and keeping that confidence and motivation? Is it more so you and your staff, or you rely on those leaders?
I would say it's probably a good combination. Managing expectations are huge, and more so than just basketball, just life. Managing expectations are huge, and we obviously are trying to grow young men here, not just the best basketball players they can be, but we want to try to instill good habits. We want to instill good habits to them that they can hopefully transfer later on in life. But we sit down every year and be as transparent as possible with all of them and kind of say, here's your role, and we do it as a whole group, but we'll call out every kid individual so everybody knows our expectations for every single individual. And with that, coming into this year and even going back to the summer does a good job of setting expectations up for the year. And I know it's completely different from the expectation side because teams can game plan for you with the winter. They've got film, they can scout you. But summer, like when you roll into D1 camp and there's 20 other varsity teams there, you see really good competition, and you're going to go against teams that are going to give you a good idea of, hey, this is going to be a pretty good pulse to how your year's going to go from a talent perspective. And unless you just go up there and just absolutely knock every team out of the park, and then you're rolling into your season and you're starting out 0-10, and those expectations are completely lopsided from what you were expecting. I don't know. It's just much easier to be transparent. I feel like I'm talking in circles here, but it's easier to be transparent and let the expectations roll as they go, roll with the changes, so to speak.
Right, because like you said, you're dealing with high school kids.
Yeah.
So emotions are a roller coaster for
Sure.
them, and being able to bottle them, being able to control them, when to release them, that's a challenging part in itself. I know, you got the X's and O's, but then you also have, the emotions of teenage boys and how do you control it. And so it is case by case. And again, that's part of that growth of what people aren't seeing is how that's handled and controlled and everything. But we're going to pause right there for a minute. A little bit of commercial here. So we'll be back in 3 minutes with Coach PJ Metz of the North Decatur Chargers boys basketball. I'm Nick Messer, and this is Overtime. Welcome back to Overtime. I'm your host, Nick Messer, joined again in studio by North Decatur boys varsity coach, PJ Metz. Just run through some cancellations again here for those of you just maybe tuning in late or watching late here. Greensburg wrestling has been canceled. Greensburg girls basketball has been canceled. North Decatur junior high basketball at Batesville has been canceled. So if you're heading that way for the 9 o'clock start, turn around or go get breakfast or something. That's been canceled. And South Decatur, both boys and girls games have been canceled tonight. So again, as those cancellations come on or come into either myself or Coach Metz here, we'll break in and let you guys know why we're still live on air. But again, let's get right back at it here with Coach. We talked about quite a bit, but let's talk about a little bit about development. So let's dive into maybe junior high dirt road and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a plethora of talent coming that makes me very excited about the future of the program and their development with what we've been able to see since they've been dirt road kids and coming all the way up through. I typically manage, from afar, getting coaches in place, obviously getting them registered for dirt road, and then we do a lot of off-season stuff with open gyms and those sorts of things. But our 8th grade right now, they've got one loss. I believe they're 8-1 maybe on the year. Their one loss coming to Hauser in a game that was played probably a couple weeks ago. But that group is just all around. I probably 1 through 5, and then even a few guys off their bench are probably as talented of a group individually as any group I've had at the junior high level in the last handful of years.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent there. Yeah. And today's matchup, honestly, because give credit to them, Batesville's 8th grade is they're legitimate. They're a great team. They beat Franklin County's 8th grade.
Oh, wow.
And Franklin County's 8th grade are monsters.
Yeah.
And so that would have been a perfect setup matchup. So hopefully you guys can get that rescheduled because I think that's a good test.
Yeah.
See where they're at, their growth, development, and things like that.
I agree. And that was kind of one of the reasons I wanted to get over to Batesville this morning, is to be able to kind of see where those guys were at. Because, with us being where we are, the conference that we play in, from year to year, some of these smaller 1A schools, the talent kind of ebbs and flows and comes in cycles. So like you said, getting over there and getting those guys tested will be a good indicator as far as where we truly are, where we're at against bigger 3-4A schools, so to speak, with talent. But, when you look at that group, 1 through 5, they've got one of everything. They've got a couple really nice wings in the Davis Scripture and Jake Whitaker, and they've got a forward in Ross Gorel who does a lot of good things and playing really good basketball right now. And then the other 2 guys that kind of round out the guys that start for them, they've got Troy Brown, who's already 6'4", and looks like he's continuing to grow with great touch around the rim, and then a hard, gritty, hard-nosed point guard in Cam Odell, who's the little brother of Logan. And those 2 are different style players, but Cam brings a little bit of hard-nosed, gritty, and toughness to teams, and most teams got to have a guy like that does those things.
He came out of the PGC, and I think that really helped him. And for those of you that don't know, that's a point guard camp.
Yeah.
So basically you can go for a day or 2 or you can go for a week, and it's a camp just for point guards, just to teach them leadership, how to initiate offense, how to run offense, how to attack the basket, and all that. But I think that really helped him.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to go and shadow a camp this year. My 2 boys were able to go to what they call point guard prep, and it was at Cardinal Ritter. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank today. It was a day camp at Cardinal Ritter for a week long, and I walked out of there with more notes and more things to bring back as a resource than any coach's clinic I'd ever been to. Just the mentality of what they teach and how they teach it and the whys behind it. It's all great stuff, and I have, since I've gotten back, I have encouraged as many basketball-loving junkie kids, even though it is expensive. If you've got the means to go, you need to go, because like I told Owen Rennekamp, if I'm not pushing you to go there before your senior year to one of their camps that they hold, I'm doing you a disservice, because you do walk out of there, like you said. People don't understand that basketball is as much mental you got to have the physical capabilities, but mentally, if you're not focused in and looking in at the right things, no matter how talented you are, it could be your biggest downfall. So they teach you how to navigate through a lot of that stuff with their breakdown sessions and stuff. But yeah, I agree. Cam went, and so did Davis, and both of those guys, I feel like have taken a step forward, so to speak, with their development. It's been good for them.
Well, I think it's a test, or not a test, but I think it shows, yes, in season you do learn, you do grow, but that off season is so important in development, especially in young players. What are you doing in that off season? Are you shooting every day? Are you putting the work in? Or are you just staying at home? Right. And I think, and it's a kind of a double-edged sword because you got to be careful with that too. You don't want to get in a program that isn't going to benefit your child or your player. So you have to find the right program, the right, are you getting into tournaments that are going to push you? Are you getting into tournaments that are going to make you better? Are you overpaying for something that isn't going to benefit your player? But I think off season though is just so important in development.
It is, and the old adage of November will be very telling with what you did, from March to November leading up to that point. Because in basketball, like, you can't hide in a corner and kind of be away. Like, I think of football, like, you can be one of 11 out there. You're 50 yards away from the fans. You've got helmets on. You've got shoulder pads on. And I'm not saying that you can hide, so to speak. But basketball, like, everything's right on top of you. So if you've got a kid that's not overly confident in himself and is very, very passive because he doesn't believe in his development or doesn't believe in the skill or talent that he has, it can be very telling when you're out there on the floor. And I don't want to say embarrassing if you're not where you want to be, but it's very obvious to the casual fan who's put in work, who hasn't. And it's obviously very telling to your coaches from a standpoint of who is truly taking this game seriously and wants to play at the highest level of high school basketball. Because those are the kids ultimately with the work ethic that make it. Just kind of the facts of the matter and kind of how it is. But
exactly.
But yeah.
We'll circle back here. I got a little off topic there, as I often do. So 8th grade, 1 loss. 7th grade.
Undefeated right now.
Undefeated. And then Dirt Road. Dirt Road,
yeah.
It's up and running, correct?
Dirt Road's up and running. 5th and 6th have played 4 weekends now. No, 3 weekends. Tomorrow would be the 4th weekend. And, our 6th grade class, I mean, they're really good. They're culture-changing group because as much as we want to sit here and say, oh, this group plays hard or that group plays hard, every single kid that steps on the floor for our 6th grade, like, they flat get after it. And it's, you can work on drills, you can do different things and talk about different things as coaches to get guys to play harder. You don't have to do any of that with these guys. They go out there and they just flat go. And they got a couple guys that lead by example with that, and everybody else just kind of follows in. And it's intoxicating, so to speak, to play with a guy who plays a certain way, and then eventually you start picking up on those kind of good habits. And 3 of those guys are playing up with our 7th grade right now, and you can start to see some of the good habits that the 6th grade has played with. I'm starting to see transform into some of these 7th grade guys. Pushing the ball up the floor, looking ahead, getting after it defensively. While these guys have always had the ability, they've been able to maybe get by, maybe without, playing a certain speed or playing with a certain intensity level. And you're starting to see some of that stuff, and it's been great.
And for those of you, I guess I should preface this, for those of you that don't know, we said Dirt Road. There's a basketball league called the Dirt Road Basketball League that is 2nd through 6th grade that is split into basically northern Indiana, southern Indiana, and here for Greensburg South, North, their Dirt Road. Typically, it's a lot of the same teams we'll see on conference schedules. Mm-hmm. South Ripley, Jacksonville, out of conference, Batesville, East Central, Franklin County. And so they get an opportunity to play 16, 18 games depending on snow. So it's a really good opportunity for kids to start to see how to be leaders, how to build culture, and all that. And they call it the Dirt Road Basketball League. So those of you listening wondering what I'm talking about, I know I said that one time, and parents thought it was racing. I'm like, no, not dirt track, dirt road basketball league. So it's a great opportunity, and schools get to develop those younger kids. So as we start to wind down here with Coach Metz, Coach, I know I don't know if we've done this yet, but I like to give coaches a final take. And basically what that is where I just give you the mic and you get to say whatever you want for as long as you want. And so I think we'll head there. We're getting closer to the top of the next hour here. So, Coach, I'll give you your final take.
Yeah, my final take, we can't do and operate what we do without the great support that we have. I've been a North Decatur lifer. Obviously, I graduated there. I've been coaching there, and now I'm back working there and have been for 12 years as a teacher and a staff member. And I just feel like North Decatur's support level from the community is pretty unmatched. I never have to beg for volunteers. I never feel like I have to beg for sponsorships. People are always willing to step up. We've got great people that, even last night, typically when you go to Edinburgh with the weather being cold like it is, I know you're going to have grandma, grandpa, mom, dad in the stands watching their kids, but we've got a lot of, I don't want to call them casual fans because a lot of people that are fans of North Decatur are diehard people, but we've got a lot of fans that were willing to travel last night. And I looked over at one point in time and I thought, man, we got a lot of people here, in the stands wanting to watch us play, even though we may be 0-3 at that point in time. And it's great to be able to give them and have this platform to give those kind of people a shout out, because I'm not able to do what I do. My kids that play basketball aren't able to do what they love to do without the great support that we have put in place within our community. And, every year it's like, man, how could it get any better in some ways, and a lot of ways that it does. Just the continued support to give them a little shout out and a thank you just means the world. I hope, even though I can't always show it or say it, have the platform to say it, but we genuinely appreciate everything that we have from a backing perspective, and roll on, continue on. I appreciate it.
Coach, appreciate you coming in studio. I know it's tough squeezing us in, and here at WTRE we've tried to help you guys, and we went from Wednesday nights so we didn't interrupt potential makeup games for whatever, or practice schedules, so we kind of adjusted for you guys, so just to show our appreciation. So we always appreciate you guys coming on here. I know it's tough to squeeze in, but as of right now, you are at OA tonight. Mm-hmm. That's a 7:30. No, that's a
6 o'clock
sorry,
JV
6
start.
o'clock JV start. Again, if there's any cancellations, you can watch social media. WTRE will get those out to you as well. If for some reason North's canceled tonight, your next game, Coach, is December 16th at home against Madison. Okay, and that, again, JV, 6 o'clock. And while we're here still on the air, I do want to give some love to the Lady Chargers. Coach Tyler Johnson was under the weather this morning, but I just want to hit his schedule real quick. His next game, or the Lady Chargers' next game, will be December 16th at Jacksonville. That's a 6 p.m. tip-off JV. And then they'll be back home December 19th. So that's this coming Friday versus Waldron, and that will be a 6 p.m. JV tip-off as well. And so show up and give the Lady Chargers some support as well. Again, I'm going to run down through some cancellations. Those of you who may be watching late or tuning in late. Cancellations here. Greensburg Wrestling has been canceled. Greensburg Girls Basketball has been canceled. If you are arriving at the junior high basketball in Batesville, that has been canceled. So go get you some breakfast or something instead. And then South Decatur boys and girls basketball has been canceled for today. But again, as of right now, the North Decatur Chargers boys basketball and the Oldenburg Academy game is still scheduled for a 6 p.m. JV tip-off tonight. As always, like, share on social media so we can bring some love and support to these high school athletes. They give they make a lot of sacrifices. They give up a lot so that you can show up on Fridays, Saturdays, Tuesdays, whenever, to watch them play. But you guys can return the favor by tuning in to Overtime here with me and giving them support. We'll be back on air again next Saturday at 8 a.m. We will probably have players live in the studio. We've reached that point where we've talked to all the coaches, and now it's time to get down to what we like to do, and that's highlight the players and talk with them. So, again, I'm Nick Messer, and this has been Overtime.